Greetings and welcome to another exciting program. Well, it's so exciting that there's two pigeons that visit my garden, Eric and Snowy, and they did a special crap for me this morning because I've got a deal going with them, you see. I've got an obnoxious neighbour that I don't get on with, so I feed them and they crap on this neighbour's car. And they did a beauty this morning right across the windscreen. So thanks, Eric and Snowy, did well. Again, it's probably the excitement of this program. Anyway, coming up tonight, we've got the dirty joke. So if you've got any feminists you're entertaining at the moment, or ladies of the night, shall we say, they might be a bit insulted by this one, but it's a cracker, it is. And if you've got the vicar over for tea, well, he's probably heard it anyway, so he'll probably tell you before me. So there we go. Now, before we go any further, there's a new series of programs that you've probably noticed on the Eric Von Essex site on YouTube, because I'm broadcasting on Facebook as well as YouTube. And I apologise to anybody that's watching on Facebook, and I advise you to go onto YouTube and log into Eric Von Essex, because I can see the chat room on YouTube, and I might have to sort of jump backwards and forwards to Facebook and whatever. So see how it goes. And well, in fact, let's have a quick look at Facebook, see if I'm on there. Am I on there? Yes, I'm on there. Goody gumdrops. There we go. Now, where was there? Oh yes, we started a new series of programs called The Mystery Hour. It will be recorded on Friday evenings and broadcast on Saturday or Sunday. And it's with psychic investigator Colin. Now, Colin is an excellent psychic investigator, probably one of the best, because unlike others, you either get the type that go into all the oh, it's all spiritual, very spiritual, or it's very scientific and all that. He gathers the information and you make up your own mind, which is pretty good. Now, we did our first one last Friday, and during that program I mentioned Mother Teresa, and she wasn't exactly what she's made out to be. And somebody contacted me, a friend of mine contacted me and said, I thought Mother Teresa was a marvellous person. So I said, well, no, she was investigated after she died, and she was far from marvellous. It was all to do with money. And he asked an interesting question, which was, did she live in riches in Calcutta? I don't know, but Colin is investigating. Now, next Friday, which will be broadcast on Saturday or Sunday, we're looking at the predictions this French woman made. And Colin hasn't told me fully. He's just told me a little bit. And what he has told me, wow, it's certainly worth watching the program. So I'm going to be interested because I don't know either. So it's going to be an interesting program. Now, with Mother Teresa of Calcutta, I remember the chap that made her famous was a chap called Malcolm Muggeridge. Now, if you're a millennial or younger than sort of 300 years old, or younger than me, then you won't know who Malcolm Muggeridge is. But if you look him up on YouTube, he was a sort of bloke that had a face that looked like when you take wet washing out of the washing machine, sort of like this. And he was a typical bloody BBC know-it-all. I'm sorry to say this. The BBC like to wheel out know-it-alls, smug gits. I mean, the BBC is I'll get the right words in there, obsessed with smug gits. I mean, for example, Professor Brian Cox. I mean, I haven't got a television, but when I did have a television, they'd always wheel him out. And I can't stand that man. And then you've got Attenborough, who reads the script. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. He just reads the script. Here, Mr. Attenborough, read this. Yes, here we are. Oh, yes, right. You know, all this. Now, now the thing is that tune in. We might be doing a Mother Teresa show, not next Friday, but the Friday afterwards, because Colin's looking into it, sort of an exposure of what it's about. But back to what's on tonight, you see. Now, I'm talking about bacteria snorting and teflon snorting. Now, you're probably thinking, huh? What? Well, when you think about it, alcohol was the scourge of the Victorian times, and drugs the scourge of the 20th century. Perhaps for the 2020s, teflon snorting or bacteria snorting, because these obedience muzzles that people are wearing have got teflon in them. So they're sniffing in teflon. And of course, scientific evidence is that the bacteria that collects in these muzzles can cause, you've got, I think it's around about 500% more chance of catching or having bacterial pneumonia. Very dangerous, incredibly dangerous. That's one of the reasons why I won't wear one. And of course, breathing your own bacteria in is not particularly healthy. And I saw a character the other day walking along, and he had the full gear. He had the obedience muzzle, goggles. Then he had the idiot shield, you know, the ones that they put on to show that they are slightly senile. And then he had two pairs, I noticed as he came towards me, two pairs of plastic gloves. Now, I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I know the government's got to make all the figures up. And of course, as people go down with bacterial pneumonia, that can then, because you know, pneumonia and FLU, conventional FLU, I won't spell it out. Well, I've spelled it out, but you know what I mean. I don't want to get booted off of Facebook or YouTube, so I'll be a bit careful what I say. They've got to bump the figures up, because those two old-fashioned diseases, good old-fashioned FLU and pneumonia, no longer exists. And of course, they are naming everything after a famous drink or a fizzy drink of the 60s. And so now, you know, if you've got dandruff, you can be test positive. Athlete's foot, tennis elbow, and the farts, I think. So, you know, it's quite exciting, isn't it? You know, but let's have a look before we go any further. Who's in chat? We've got Rob Random. Oh, hello, Rob. Why would anyone snort Teflon? Well, I've just explained it. I see, you see. But I'm thinking, could they, you know, government have like, you could have like little cultures, you see, where you could, if you're really, oh, hang on a minute, there's Emma. Hello, Emma. Evening. And you could go in, and people that are really addicted to Teflon, because let's face it, they're going to get addicted to it, maybe, I don't know. They could sort of, oh, a nice bit of bacteria. Oh, lovely, you know, and that could then the next stage will be getting Bill Gates' little prick, you know. Not, double meaning there. Metaphorically, shall we say. Now, before we go any further, I had a joke the other day. It's not all that good. Matt Hancock goes to China, you see. He went there before he became a big honcho, as he is now. And as he's walking around, you see, he sees this Chinese wise man with his little pebbles, and he's throwing them against a rock. And he's going, and they're making this noise. And, you know, Matt Hancock, I'm sure that man is a mutant. In his sort of, I say, what are you doing? And Chinaman, the wise man, says, I'm throwing these pebbles against the sacred rock, and my ancient ancestors are advising me, and they're telling me things. Oh, that's interesting. I must have a go. See, so The wise man gives him some pebbles, throws them against the rocks. They go, wanker! He throws them again, wanker! No, anyway, sorry, it's not wanker one, is it? No. Anyway, on we go. Now, I was going to say something about arms, and I thought, well, yeah, why not? I'm not talking about these sort of arms, I'm talking about sort of arms. And I wrote a blog about it, so excuse me, I will be reading it, but it's very short, and you might find it interesting because there's something I've looked into, and I've done a complete U-turn, and I admit that I was possibly wrong when I was younger. Okay, so here we go in my blog, and it says, the Americans are armed. Many of their citizens are armed to the teeth. Hence, US governments have to tread carefully. Europeans are not armed. Hence, governments can walk over us with confidence that nothing much will happen apart from a few protests here and there that have largely been infiltrated. Now, that's slightly wrong because Switzerland are armed, and I'll go into that a little bit later. Now, it says, I went on to say, I'm very much a pacifist. Was never allowed to play with toy guns when I was a child. What my father went through during World War II and the amount of killing he saw, he always vouched that if he ever had a son, his son would never have any toy guns. And I never had any toy guns to play with when I was a child. I never had aggressive toys. Now, for years, I was totally against armaments and supported peace organisations. I say supported, not joined. I don't join anything. I've never joined anything. I'm not a joiner. Until finding out what they were really about. Well, yeah, they were all infiltrated. Now, about 15 years ago, I slowly began to have a change of mind. This is about weapons. Every country where its population was disarmed, their governments eventually ran roughshod over them. The Chinese were disarmed. Mao, who was responsible for the genocide of millions, similar in the former Soviet Union under Stalin. What is developing now has completely changed my mind. If we were armed, the government would have to tread very carefully. I wouldn't get away with a fraction of what they're getting away with now. Never in my wildest dreams when I was younger would I have ever thought I would come to that conclusion. Now, the big problem is if you've got nutters running amok, and you know, they do occasionally, and you've got loonies with guns. Yes, but when you think on the other side, how governments are running roughshod over us and know they can get away with it, and when you see what was happening in America, they try to take their guns away from them by having these fake shootouts. You know, I've never seen anything like this. Oh, and I saw the Michael Moore programs when he spoke to the members of the Rifle Association in America, and it was all very emotional. And at that time, I thought, oh, yeah, I was was on the side of Michael Moore. I've done a U-turn now, because I mean, Charlton Heston, I think he was the president of the American Rifle Association, Gun and Rifles, and he wasn't stupid. He was pretty bright upstairs, and his basement, you could, with the amount of arms he had, I think you could have equipped a small army. But strangely enough, you know, people say, well, look what's happening in America with guns and things like that. But really, look at Switzerland. Now, Switzerland, every home has a gun because they've got a strange military where every male up to the age of 50 has to do so many weeks a year in the forces. And what they do in the forces is generally linked to either their occupation or a hobby. For example, I worked with a chap who was Swiss, and he was explaining, he said there was somebody where he lived that was a pigeon fancier, and he went into an army regiment that bred pigeons because the Swiss would use carrier pigeons in an emergency. And he said it was the only the only army position where the lower ranks shit on the the higher ranks and get away with it. But I'm against any form of compulsory military service. I'm against governments, full stop. But isn't it strange that in Switzerland you never ever hear of any outrages with guns, and everybody's armed? I suppose it's maybe because they're trained to use them. I don't know, but you don't, And the countries that the people are armed, I mean, there's some people in this country I dread to think if they're armed. But what is little known is that before 1920 you could buy arms over the counter in much the same way as you can in some states in America today, and it was the 1920 Firearms Act, which was hurriedly pushed through Parliament, that brought an end to that. And there's a lot of acts in the 1920s that was put through because they were worried that after the First World War there were so many discontented people. Like, for example, I think in the 1918 election it was the lowest turnout ever, even to today's standards. It was the lowest per head of population because people had just had enough of politicians, and they thought there was going to be a revolution, especially with the national strike a little bit further on in the 1920s. So lots of acts were put through, and that was one of the big major acts which then prevented the sale. Well, farmers could buy shotguns and things like that, but it really reduced the. I've got problems with my tie this evening. Yeah, last time I'm going to buy a cheap tie, and yes, so it stopped it. But in the Victorian times, you could walk around quite armed, quite freely. Now let's go to chat and have a quick look what we got here. You've got South Coast detecting. My old school trousers had teflon in them. Well, I suppose they didn't stick much, did they? Hamish is in a sticky situation. Rob Random, I had holes in my pockets, and a very fit lady French teacher. I had slippery stuff in my trousers too. South Coast detecting. Well, you know the old Chinese saying, "Feel should say, man with hole in pocket feel cocky all day." Anyway, it's a short one this evening. But do you want to hear the mechanical prostitute joke? It's a bit of a filthy one. This one is. So, as I say, if the Vic is in there, he's heard it. But if you've got any feminists, ladies of the night around, tell them to get outside for a while. Bloke goes down to a red light district, all right, during this situation. You see, he wants to go up at night, you see, and he goes into one of these sleazy places, and he said, "Got any naughty girls?" The bloke says, "I'm afraid, under the new regulations we can't." But he said, "What we've just got in from Japan is this latest AI thing." He said, "And we've got mechanical sort of, we've got this robotic ladies." Really? I don't know about that. He said, "Well, how much is it?" He said, "Oh, it's 20 quid a night." He said, £20? That's cheap. He said, "Well, He said, "Well, I might as well have 20 quid's worth." So he said, "Well, you can have room number whatever." See, so anyway, he gives him the keys to this room. He walks into the room, and there's a sort of like mannequin dummy on the bed, sort of like this. What could have been like that, And he puts his 20 quid in the slot at the bottom of the bed, and boom, comes to life, Anyway, cut a long story sideways. Next morning, he comes down the stairs. There's smoke coming up his jacket. He's got a great smile on his face. Bloody hell, he's hardly got the energy to walk down the stairs. So the fella at the reception says, "All right, was it?" "All right." He said, "I never had an experience like it." Bloody, he says, "Absolutely unbelievable." But he said, "One slight problem." So what's that? He said, "My nose kept running all the time." "Oh, but she's full up, better empty her." Terrible one, isn't it? Anyway, that's enough for tonight. I'm terribly sorry it's a short one tonight, but I haven't done much research this week. And we'll have a longer show next Monday, 8 o'clock. And remember to subscribe. Doesn't cost anything. Ding the little bell. Ding, 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 ding. And above all, whatever happens, keep smiling, because smiles spread and happiness spreads. And thank you very much for joining me this evening. And you'll hear me, I'll be speaking, Colin and I are going to do the mystery hour this Friday, and we're going to go into all different areas to do with the paranormal. And again, he is a paranormal professional paranormal investigator, so he knows his stuff. And we'll be looking at cryptozoology as well, and all different matters around that. So if there's anything that you're particularly interested in, please tell us, and I'm sure Colin will do the research into it. I just interviewed Colin, he's the researcher. Thank you very much for joining me this evening, and see you over the weekend with the mystery hour that's recorded on Friday, and next Monday at 8 o'clock. And good night.